This is Javier Arancibia from Liberate Rochester again. Thank you for watching. I want to talk a little bit about beliefs in general, and then beliefs about government, or belief in government. So, let's suppose that beliefs, or a belief, is like a tabletop. And in order for the tabletop to stand, the tabletop needs to have legs to support it. Now, since it's an imaginary tabletop, it can have as many legs as you want, or as little legs as you want. But let's decide that in order for a table to stay standing, even in your mind, it has to have some legs. Okay, so the legs of the table, or the legs of the belief, can be reasons or references that tell you that that belief is true or is real. Now, in order to change a belief in general, we can, or just abandon the belief altogether, we can shed doubt on or refute the reasons for having the belief. Or we can discredit or reinterpret the references of the belief. So when we do that, the table wobbles a little bit, we knock off enough legs, the table falls over, the belief is done. So, I want to talk about the belief in government. The belief in government, in this case by libertarians, small government libertarians, or so-called minarchists, who believe in the necessity of government to some extent. And it's my intention to shed doubt on the reasons to believe in this. So, I want to give an example. Okay, let's say you have person A and person B. And the small government libertarian, or the person who believes in government, the statist, whatever, decides that there has to be, or there is conflict between person A and person B. So you have to have police, or you have to have security, or peacekeepers. Now, most people would make the same conclusion, and I'd make the same conclusion too. But the error in the thinking comes in that a government or a state should perform this task, perform the task of policing or of keeping the peace. Before I go on, I just want to define government or the state, and I'm going to use a definition by Hans-Hermann Hoppe. A compulsory territorial monopoly of ultimate jurisdiction and or the right to tax. So if government or the state takes over policing, or everyone decides that they should do all the policing or all the peacekeeping, it should be a monopoly according to them. So only they're allowed to do it, and they can tax you. Now, persons A and B choose government X to fulfill this role of police and peacekeeping and so on. So there can be some order. Now, what happens when governments X, Y, and Z have conflict? Well, governments X, Y, and Z have the same relationship that A and B had originally to each other. So, thinking about this leads us to the conclusion that X, Y, and Z should not exist, that there should only be one world government. Now, let's talk about the members of government X. Who are the members, or what is government X? Well, government X is just made up of a bunch of A's and B's and C's and D's. It's just a bunch of people. So, when states or when governments fight, or do the fighting, who does the fighting, actually? Well, the fighting is done by a whole alphabet of saps who pay taxes to the same state who sends them to fight. And the lucky ones who get to be members of governments X, Y, or Z don't do the fighting. The people who are being protected are the ones who do the fighting and are the ones who die. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think that's a pretty good question. So I want to end with another quote from Hans Hoppe that I think sums it up really well. The state aggresses against us, and it uses our confiscated property to defend itself. I hope that this served to shed a little doubt on the idea of government, or that we need to have government, especially for the minarchists or the small government libertarians who haven't taken that final step to becoming voluntarists or anarchists. Thank you for watching. This is Javier Arencibia from Liberate Rochester.